Elara hummed a little tune as she wiped down the counter of her cozy cafe. The daily grind. The smell of fresh coffee always made her happy. She loved her cafe more than anything. It wasn't just a place to serve warm drinks. It was a spot where stories unfolded, day after day. Elara, with her bright eyes and a smile that could warm even the chilliest morning, was more than just the owner. She was a listener. Every morning, she'd greet her regulars by name, remembering their favorite orders, and often a little bit about their lives. Old Mr. Henderson would come in for his black coffee and tell tales of his garden. Young Lily would sip her hot chocolate, giggling about her school adventures. Elara found joy in all of it. She truly believed that every cup of coffee came with a story, and she was always ready to lend an ear. Her cafe was a haven, a place where people felt comfortable sharing their joys and worries. Elara made sure of it. She poured her heart into every latte and every conversation, making the daily grind a true home away from home for many in the small town. One blustery Tuesday, the cafe door chimed, and in hobbled Mr. Pumble, a man as old as some of Elara's coffee machines. He was a quiet soul, usually content with his daily black tea and the newspaper. But today, his eyes held a sparkle Elara hadn't seen before. He settled into his usual corner booth, taking his tea with a trembling hand. "Elara, my dear," he began, his voice barely a whisper, "have you ever heard of the Wish Nebula?" Elara paused, a steaming mug in her hand. "A nebula, Mr. Pumble? Like in space?" she asked, a little confused. He leaned in, his voice dropping even lower. "Not just any nebula, child. This is a special one. They say it can make any dream come true, if you can find its subtle navigation." He looked around as if someone might be listening. "It's a legend, of course, a very old tale, but some folks, they believe it's real. A swirling cloud of starlight, hidden right here on Earth, waiting for someone to find its path." Elara chuckled softly. "Sounds like a wonderful story, Mr. Pumble. A real magical thought for a gloomy day." She thought about the endless stream of hopes and dreams whispered within her cafe walls. A place where wishes came true? It was a charming idea, a beautiful fantasy. Yet a tiny seed of wonder began to sprout in her heart. After Mr. Pumble left, the cafe slowly emptied, leaving Elara alone with the clatter of dishes and the lingering scent of coffee. She usually used this quiet time to plan tomorrow's specials or balance her books. But today her thoughts kept drifting back to Mr. Pumble's hushed words. A wish nebula? It sounded like something from a children's fairy tale, a sweet dream to imagine on a rainy afternoon. Elara smiled to herself. Of course, it wasn't real. Wishes didn't just float in the air, waiting to be caught like dandelion seeds. Yet, the idea of it tickled her imagination. She pictured a swirl of soft, glowing colors, like the milk foam art she sometimes made in lattes, but grander, shimmering with starlight. What would it be like to stumble upon such a thing? What kinds of dreams would it hold? A little shiver ran down her spine, not from cold, but from a spark of pure, childish excitement. It was the same feeling she used to get when she was a little girl, hearing tales of hidden treasures or secret gardens. Even though her grown-up mind told her it was just a story, a tiny, hopeful part of her wondered, what if? It was a lovely thought to carry, a small, secret joy that brightened the rest of her day, making her hum a happier tune as she finished cleaning up. The next afternoon, Elara decided it was time to finally tackle the cafe's dusty attic. It was a jumbled mess of old chairs, forgotten coffee grinders, and boxes filled with things from past owners. As she moved a heavy trunk, a small, rolled-up piece of paper slipped from beneath it. It was tied with a faded ribbon, and felt brittle with age. Curiosity twinkling in her eyes, Elara carefully untied the ribbon. The paper crackled as she unrolled it, revealing a map. But it wasn't a map of her town, or even a country. It was a map of the night sky, drawn in faint, sepia-toned ink. What caught her eye was a particular cluster of stars, drawn with extra care. They didn't look like any constellation she knew. They swirled together in a hazy, almost cloud-like pattern, quite unlike the sharp points of other stars. She traced the strange star pattern with her finger. It was beautiful, like a delicate watercolor painting of the cosmos. A faint symbol, almost hidden, was tucked into one corner of the map. It looked like a tiny, glowing spiral. A strange feeling washed over Elara. This wasn't just any old map. It felt special, important even. The image of the swirling stars, drawn with such an unusual touch, stayed with her as she carefully re-rolled the map. Later that evening, as Elara brewed a cup of chamomile tea, her mind kept going back to the map. She unrolled it again on her kitchen table, smoothing out its ancient creases. The swirling star pattern seemed to almost glow under the soft lamplight. It was then that a word popped into her head, Nebula. Mr. Pumble's words echoed in her memory, a swirling cloud of starlight. The stars on the map looked exactly like a swirling cloud. And the tiny spiral symbol in the corner? It reminded her of the way Mr. Pumble had talked about finding its, quote, subtle navigation. Could this be more than just a coincidence? Elara's heart began to beat a little faster. She had brushed off Mr. Pumble's tale as a charming fantasy, but this map felt different. It was old, real, and right there in her hands. The way the stars were drawn, so unlike any ordinary star chart, made her wonder if this was a secret guide. A guide to what? To the very thing Mr. Pumble had whispered about, the Wish Nebula. The idea, once a playful thought, now felt like a warm, exciting possibility. She carefully folded the map, a new kind of wonder settling deep within her. The possibility of the Wish Nebula being real buzzed in Elara's mind, like a happy bee. She couldn't just ignore it. So after closing the daily grind each day, her quest began. She started by visiting Mr. Abernathy's dusty old bookstore, a place filled with forgotten tales and ancient wisdom. "Mr. Abernathy," she asked, holding up a drawing of the map's strange star pattern, "have you ever seen anything like this?" The old bookseller peered at her sketch through his spectacles. Intriguing, Elara. Looks like an ancient star chart, but not one I recognize from any common astronomy book." He then pulled out several heavy, leather-bound tomes, their pages brittle with age. Together, they searched, but found no exact match. However, Mr. Abernathy did mention old folk tales of hidden lights and earth-bound constellations. Elara also sought out Mrs. Gable, a wise woman who lived on the edge of town and was known for her knowledge of local legends and old stories. Mrs. Gable listened carefully, her eyes twinkling. "The stars don't always mean the sky, dear," she said, her voice soft like rustling leaves. "Sometimes they point to things on the ground, things that reflect the heavens." These words, along with the map, were slowly piecing together a puzzle in Elara's mind, making her wonder if the nebula wasn't in the distant sky, but much closer than she thought. The words from Mr. Abernathy and Mrs. Gable had planted a new, exciting idea in Elara's mind. She had always thought of nebulas as far-off clouds in space, only visible through powerful telescopes. But what if this wish nebula was different? What if it was close by, hidden in plain sight? She re-examined the map, not just as a sky chart, but as a treasure map for something on Earth. The swirling star pattern, so distinct, no longer seemed to point to distant galaxies. Instead, it started to feel like a drawing of something tangible, something that could be found in a landscape. Mrs. Gable's words about, quote, earthbound constellations truly clicked. The stars on the map weren't just stars, they were clues. Elara spent hours poring over old local history books, looking for any mention of places that matched the map's strange symbols or descriptions. She started noticing odd little phrases in dusty texts referring to the heart of the fallen stars, or where the heavens touch the earth. It all pointed to one exciting truth. The legendary Wish Nebula wasn't a speck of stardust millions of miles away. It was a special place, hidden right here, tucked away in some forgotten corner of the world, waiting to be found. This changed everything. Her search was no longer about looking up, but about looking down and all around. With her new understanding, Elara looked at the map again, this time with fresh eyes. She noticed a faint line of tiny, old-fashioned script tucked beneath the swirling stars. It was a riddle, written in a poetic hand, where the sun's shadow tells the hour, and stone sleeps under nature's power. A whisper from the sky descends, where earthly starlight gently blends. Elara read the riddle over and over. Where the sun's shadow tells the hour instantly made her think of a sundial, and stone sleeps under nature's power brought to mind old, moss-covered statues or markers. She thought of all the places around town. Then a memory sparked. An old, forgotten park on the very edge of town, barely visited anymore. It had a crumbling stone sundial and overgrown stone benches. She closed the cafe early that day, her heart thumping with excitement. She grabbed her sturdy walking shoes and the precious map. The path to the park was winding and a little wild, with tall grass tickling her knees. When she arrived, the park was just as she remembered, quiet, peaceful, and a little wild. The old sundial stood in the center, its metal gnomon rusted, its stone base covered in moss. "This must be it," she whispered, a thrill running through her. The forgotten park truly felt magical, with tall trees and birds singing softly. Elara walked toward the old sundial, carefully pushing aside tangled vines. Its stone was rough and cool beneath her fingers. As she looked closer at the sundial's base, she noticed something odd. Part of the stone was worn smooth, as if many hands had touched it over a very long time. Following the faint line of the sundial's shadow, which was short in the late afternoon, her eyes landed on a large, flat stone partly hidden by overgrown ferns. It looked like an old, fallen marker. Elara carefully brushed away the dirt and leaves. Underneath, beautiful carvings appeared. They weren't like any pictures she'd seen before. There were swirling lines, like tiny galaxies, and small glowing dots that seemed to dance across the stone. At the very center of these carvings was a symbol, the exact spiral she had seen on her old map. Her heart leaped with a joyful surprise. This was it. This was the earthly starlight the riddle spoke of. The sundial and the carved stone were clearly connected, pointing to something special. Elara knelt down, her fingers tracing the ancient lines. A soft, strange energy seemed to hum from the stone, making her skin tingle. It felt like she was on the very edge of a wonderful secret. Elara knew the sundial told the hour by the sun, but what about the moon? She remembered the riddle's line. a whisper from the sky descends, where earthly starlight gently blends. This made her think of nighttime. She decided to come back when the moon was full, hoping it would unlock more of the mystery. A few nights later, under a big round moon, Elara returned to the quiet park. The silver moonlight painted the trees, and old stone a soft, magical glow. She walked straight to the carved stone. As the moon's light fell upon the ancient carvings, something amazing happened. The swirling lines and tiny dots on the stone began to glow. First, a faint shimmer, then a soft, steady light like tiny stars had come to rest on the stone surface. The spiral symbol in the middle glowed brightest of all. The glowing carvings formed a shimmering path, stretching out from the stone, pointing toward the densest part of the woods. It wasn't a bright, blinding light, but a gentle, inviting sparkle, like breadcrumbs of moonlight leading the way. Elara's breath hitched. This was it. This was the subtle navigation Mr. Pumble had spoken of, the earthly starlight Mrs. Gable hinted at. With a heart full of wonder, Elara followed the moonlit trail, each glowing carving a silent guide deeper into the enchanted woods. The glowing trail from the carved stone led Elara deeper into the woods, past ancient oak trees and shadowy bushes. The air grew cooler and quieter, the sounds of the town fading behind her. Each faint glow on the ground pulsed softly, showing her exactly where to step. It felt like walking through a dream. Finally, the glowing path ended at a wall of dense rock, completely covered in thick, dark green vines. The vines clung tightly, making the rock face look like a solid, unbroken barrier. But the last glow on the ground pulsed directly at the center of the vine-covered wall. Elara's heart fluttered. She pushed aside the heavy curtains of ivy, her fingers finding a small opening hidden underneath. It wasn't a grand archway or a marked entrance. It was just a small gap, almost swallowed by the clinging plants. She carefully parted the last of the vines, revealing a dark, narrow opening. A cool, damp breath, carrying the scent of earth and old stone, wafted out. This had to be it. This was the hidden doorway, protected by nature, just as the old stories hinted. Taking a deep breath, Elara squeezed through the opening, leaving the moonlit woods behind and stepping into the unknown. Stepping through the vine-covered opening, Elara found herself in a small, dark passage. But the darkness didn't last long. As she took a few steps forward, the passage widened into a large cave, and a soft, otherworldly light began to fill the space. This light came not from the moon, but from within the cave itself. The air inside was warm, not cold and damp like she expected a cave to be. More surprisingly, she could feel a gentle hum, a soft vibration that seemed to fill every corner of the cavern. It was like the quiet buzz of a happy dream. And everywhere she looked, crystals sparkled. They grew from the walls, hung from the ceiling, and even dotted the floor like scattered jewels. Some were clear, like ice, while others shone with faint colors, soft blues, greens, and purples. Each crystal caught the inner light of the cave and sent tiny rainbows dancing across the rough stone. Elara gasped softly. This was far more magical than any fairy tale she had ever heard. The cave felt alive, pulsing with a quiet, friendly power. It was peaceful and exciting all at once. The air itself seemed to sing a silent song, a song of old magic and forgotten wishes. She walked deeper, her eyes wide with wonder, drawn by the gentle hum, and the dazzling sparkle of the crystals. This was truly a special place. Drawn by the gentle hum and the sparkling crystals, Elara moved deeper into the cave. The air grew even softer, and the light seemed to gather in one special spot. As she rounded a bend, she stopped, her eyes widening in disbelief. Before her lay a pool of water, perfectly still and clear. But it wasn't just water. Within its depths, a wondrous light swirled and danced. It was a beautiful mix of soft blues, purples, and faint greens, twisting and turning like a miniature galaxy captured right there in the earth. Tiny points of light, like distant stars, blinked in and out of the colorful swirls. It was the very image of a nebula, but instead of being millions of miles away, it was right here, shimmering in the heart of the cave. Elara knelt by the edge of the pool, mesmerized. The light from the water reflected onto her face, making her feel warm and peaceful. She could almost hear a soft, silent song coming from the swirling colors. This wasn't just a pool. It was a living picture of the cosmos, a tiny window to something vast and magical. It looked exactly like the star pattern on her old map, brought to life. A sense of awe filled her, deeper than any excitement she'd felt before. This was truly a miracle. Kneeling by the shimmering pool, Elara felt a deep sense of peace settle over her. The soft, swirling lights within the water seemed to reach out to her, welcoming her. There was no doubt left in her mind. This was it. This was the legendary Wish Nebula that Mr. Pumble had whispered about, the magical place hidden on Earth that could make dreams come true. She remembered his hushed words. They say it can make any dream come true. And Mrs. Gable's knowing smile. The old map, the riddle, the glowing carvings, the hidden cave, and now this breathtaking pool. Every step had led her to this very moment. It wasn't a story from a book anymore. It was real, pulsing with a quiet power right before her eyes. The air around the pool felt thick with unspoken hopes and dreams, a gentle whisper of possibilities. Elara realized that the journey itself had been part of the magic, teaching her to look closer, to listen to old tales, and to believe in the extraordinary. This was more than just a beautiful sight. It was a sacred space, a true heart of wishes. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the wonder fill her completely, preparing her heart for the special moment that was to come. With the Wish Nebula shimmering before her, Elara knew this was the moment. She had found the place where dreams could come true. 1,000 personal wishes might have crossed someone else's mind. Riches, fame, endless youth. But Elara's heart was full of something else. She closed her eyes, letting the soft light of the nebula warm her face. In her mind, she pictured the daily grind, her cozy cafe. She saw Mr. Pumble sipping his tea, Mr. Henderson telling his garden stories, and young Lily giggling over her hot chocolate. She remembered the quiet smiles, the shared laughter, the comforting silences. Her cafe wasn't just a business. It was a gathering place, a small hub of kindness and connection in their town. With all her heart, Elara made her wish. It wasn't for herself. It was for her cafe, and for every person who walked through its doors. She wished for joy, for comfort, for understanding. She wished for her cafe to always be a place where people felt truly welcome, a warm and happy spot in the world. She wished for it to continue being a place where stories could bloom and friendships could grow forever. With her eyes closed, Elara focused on her deepest desire. It wasn't about money or fame for herself. It was about the heart of her cafe, the daily grind. She pictured its warm glow on a chilly morning, the laughter that echoed between its walls, the quiet comfort it offered to lonely souls. "I wish," she whispered, her voice soft but strong. That my cafe, the daily grind, always be a happy place. A place where every single person who walks through its doors feels truly welcome. I wish for it to be a haven, where smiles are easy, worries can melt away, and everyone feels like they belong. She didn't wish for endless customers or fancy awards. She wished for the feeling, the very essence of what made her cafe special. She wished for kindness to flow as freely as the coffee, for understanding to be as comforting as a warm pastry, and for friendship to brew as strongly as her best espresso. It was a wish born of pure love for her community, a desire for her small corner of the world to be a beacon of warmth and joy. The image of her cafe, bustling with happy faces, filled her mind, and she held on to that feeling as she made her heartfelt plea to the shimmering Nebula. As Elara finished her heartfelt wish, a profound change rippled through the cave. A gentle, comforting warmth spread through the air, chasing away any lingering coolness. It wasn't like a fire's heat, but more like the embrace of a loving friend. This warmth settled deep inside her, making her feel peaceful and deeply content. Then the pool before her responded. The beautiful, swirling lights within the water grew brighter, pulsing with an intense, joyful glow. The blues deepened, the purples shimmered with new energy, and the greens became more vibrant, like 1,000 tiny stars had suddenly awakened. For a brief, breathtaking moment, the entire cave was bathed in this radiant, colorful light, reflecting off the crystals and making them sparkle even more brilliantly. It was as if the Wish Nebula itself was acknowledging her wish, wrapping it in its magical embrace. The hum in the air grew a little stronger, a harmonious vibration that seemed to sing, "Yes." Then, as quickly as it had intensified, the light in the pool softened back to its gentle, swirling glow. The warm feeling lingered, a sweet echo of the magic that had just unfolded. Elara opened her eyes, a soft smile gracing her lips. She knew without a single doubt that her wish had been heard. With her wish made and the warm glow still lingering in her heart, Elara felt a profound sense of peace. The vibrant burst of light from the pool had been a clear sign, a magical nod that her heartfelt desire for the daily grind had been accepted. There was no need to ask for more, no lingering doubt. The quest was complete. She took one last look at the shimmering nebula pool, its colors swirling gently, a soft promise held within its depths. The crystals on the walls still sparkled, reflecting a quiet beauty. It was a place she would carry in her memories forever, a secret treasure of her soul. Turning, Elara retraced her steps through the crystal-lined cave. The air still hummed softly, a comforting farewell. She squeezed back through the vine-covered opening, emerging into the cool, moonlit air of the forest. The glowing trail from the carved stone was now faint, its task done. As she walked back through the quiet park and along the winding path toward her town, a feeling of deep happiness settled over her. It wasn't the giddy excitement of finding treasure, but a calm, settled joy. She knew her wish had been heard, and that was enough. The world, her town, and especially her cafe, felt a little brighter already. The next morning, Elara unlocked the doors of the daily grind with a new spring in her step and a quiet joy in her heart. She wasn't looking for grand, flashy changes. Her wish had been for a feeling, a warmth, a sense of welcome. And as the day unfolded, she started to notice little things. The old coffee machine, which sometimes sputtered, seemed to brew with extra cheer, its gurgles sounding almost musical. The sun, usually shy on these autumn mornings, streamed brightly through the front window, making the cafe feel extra cozy. When Mr. Henderson came in, he didn't just tell a story about his garden. He brought Elara a small, perfect rose, fresh from his bush. Young Lily, usually a whirlwind of energy, sat quietly drawing a picture of a rainbow for Elara. Even the little mishaps turned into moments of shared laughter. When a new customer accidentally spilled a bit of sugar, another regular quickly helped clean it up, making a joke that eased the new person's embarrassment. Elara found herself smiling more easily, her conversations with customers flowing with an added layer of warmth. It was subtle, almost imperceptible to anyone else, but to Elara, these tiny moments were clear signs. Her wish was already beginning to bloom. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, and Elara's cafe truly blossomed. The little good things she first noticed grew into a steady stream of warmth and cheer. The daily grind was more than just a place for coffee. It was the heart of the town. The air inside always felt cozy, filled with the rich scent of coffee and a gentle, happy buzz of conversation. Customers lingered longer, sharing stories and laughter. New friendships bloomed over steaming mugs, and old ones grew stronger. Mr. Pumble, still a regular, often looked around with a knowing twinkle in his eye, a soft smile on his lips, as if he, too, felt the special magic. Mr. Henderson's roses appeared more often, and Lily's drawings adorned a special spot on the wall. Even the grumpiest townsfolk found themselves softening when they stepped through Elara's door. Elara herself felt lighter, her heart full. She knew her wish had come true in the most beautiful way. Her cafe was indeed a happy place where everyone felt welcome, a haven of kindness and connection, just as she had asked the Wish Nebula. The subtle magic had woven itself into the very fabric of the daily grind, making it a beloved home for all.